If you hire people who are not curious in life overall, you don't get a good result in multicultural teams. In interviews, I'm always like, what are you new at this year? Or what are you learning this year as a person? And so if people are like, nothing, even if they have the best skill set and are good people, it usually won't work in my teams that are usually distributed. A lot of entrepreneurs, when they come to the US, especially from France, sometimes they have a certain arrogance about how we do things in Europe. I want to apply the same, and actually it's not. A lot of things are different.
What are some best practices you found of really diving into the pain point and getting the truth out of these user tests?
I think you have to come with asking really open questions, because it's easy to, ask someone, hey, do you prefer A or B? And they would say A, even if A or B doesn't fit what they would like. So
Dennis, welcome to Founders and Empanadas. Super excited
thank
to have
you.
you on today.
Yeah, exciting. I have my empanadas too, ready to roll.
Let's dive
Yeah,
in. Cheers.
cheers.
So today I'm rocking with my old and trusty feta cheese empanada.
Mm-hmm.
What flavor did you get?
I got some beef, looks
Nice.
like. Yeah, very good.
Always tastes better when you're on an empty stomach.
Yeah.
Well, Dennis, I'm extremely honored to have you on today. You and your team have built a incredible product. You've got a badass product team, I can tell. Um, and would really love to dive deeper into the world of hardware. Hardware is
Yeah.
hard. I got a taste of that when I used to work at Bird, the electric scooter startup in the early days.
Oh, nice.
But you're the ones that are working in real tech, not just us, software folks.
Yeah.
So yeah, really excited to dive in. And to kick things off, I'd love to learn a little bit more about your career trajectory from MIT to where you are today with Kadeya.
Yeah. All right. Perfect. I'm born and raised in France, the south of France, um, and trained as an engineer, and then joined the automotive industry. So quite a standard, career path. Um, and did that for 10 years, where I was doing, hardware and software integration in engines and vehicles, mostly on project management roles, coordinating between different, departments of the company. And after 10 years, I was really wanting to like join a smaller company. And so I left for a smaller company in oil and gas, still hardware and software, sensors, linked to software, supervision, all that stuff. So always the same kind of product and systems. And then a friend called me and is like, hey, I'm in this robotic company, and we're doing autonomous forklifts, and um, maybe they need you. He was more in the R&D team. And so got to talk to them and join. The company is called Balyo, Balyo. And at that time, it's Series A, 20, 25 people, very the initial business traction. And so they need someone to help, organizing operations. So deployment, manufacturing, and customer service. That was, done by R&D engineers until then. So hired the right people, built the team, implemented processes. And after 2, 3 years, they asked me to move to the US to build a business here in the US. So that was 10 years ago, exactly 10 years ago, September 2015. And I moved to build the business from scratch. So different thing, because of course I had to like implement the operations again, kind of mirroring what we were doing in Europe, but also build a business team and the marketing and all that stuff to really build the business here. So new things to learn for me, and learning a new country, even if I knew the U.S. from working with American people and coming here on vacation, I was not like working was a different beast. yeah, and so for 5 years, led that team, and um, and
Full
then
month of
I left.
office. That's a day off like in Europe.
Yeah, so yeah, no, I mean, tech companies have pretty nice package here in the US now. So it's, with unlimited PTO or like a decent number of weeks now, it's pretty comparable actually.
I'm curious, Dennis, what was the transition like going from, working in a more traditional industry like oil and gas to a startup like Balyo, and maybe what were some of the things that you had to first unlearn when you transitioned to the startup world?
That was tough because the speed I was like walking it on a highway and everything was going too fast around me. So I got to take the pace of a startup, and think in startup years, like you do 7 times more things than in a traditional industry. So the main things were make a decision. Like make a decision fast is better than make the right decision that you take weeks to make. So I think that's what I learned. Learned like we were taking weeks and months to make a decision at Renault or in more traditional industries, because we had the money and the time to do it. And in a startup, you just go. And if you make a mistake, that's not the problem. The problem is to correct that mistake as soon as possible, as fast as possible, and get to the next thing. So that was kind of the new thing for me, and the thing I had to unlearn. And the other one was um, more around invest in your customers. In traditional industries, the budgets are set, the price is set. You don't have to learn that; it has already been learned, and so you manage, fixed budgets, and it's very structured. Well, in a startup, you know, even if you're losing money on selling something, if it's a big account, if you want to sell a robot to an Amazon or a P&G, and they're like, it's going to be 50K a robot, and your cost is actually 50K, you sell it anyway, because at the moment, making money or being profitable is not the exact thing you want to be doing. You want to get new, interesting logos. You want to develop your business and get some traction, not necessarily the financial that goes with it. So that's also something that I was always like, when my CEO at Balyo or even at Vecna was like, hey, um, let's do this. I was like, oh, we're gonna lose money, and so it took me a few years to like get used to this.
Yep.
That's, I think, the two main things I had to unlearn from the traditional industries.
Perfect. Yeah, and I work with a couple European founders that are in the early stages of setting up their US operations. I'm curious, just from your time at Balyo, any expensive lessons learned or nuances and best practices you can share for Europeans that are looking to launch in US?
I think be humble about where we about, and I think it's valid not only launching in the US, but you come from a country to another, just be humble, spend the time to learn how the country works when it comes um, to business, how you deal with customers, how you deal with employees, how you deal with partners, what are the habits, um, and just learn before activating anything. I think a lot of entrepreneurs, when they come to the US, especially from France, sometimes they have a certain arrogance about how we do things in Europe. I want to apply the same, and actually, it's not. A lot of things are different, and we all look the same, so it's easy to think we're doing the same things, but it's not. So um, yeah, it's really important. So in the detail, salaries are not the same. Basically, here in the US, you pay people twice than in Europe for the same job. Um, your relationship with employees is different. It's less friendly than in Europe or in France. Um, you have to take care about all the jokes you're doing. You have to take care about, you know, I mean, it's all the little details. Um, so you have to merge those culture together. with the first employees, and then it works. But it's yeah, as an entrepreneur, take the time to learn about the country you're getting in before coming and believing you're going to be successful just because you are successful where you're coming from.
Excellent. Yeah, and I understand that Balyo, you went from 0 to 5 million in revenue in 2 years from launch. What were maybe some of the unscalable things that you were doing early on that kind of helped make that happen, but you had to adjust with the rapid growth?
Basically, we were throwing people at everything we had to do. So, not scalable at all at the beginning, but when you have big names on your account list, you want them to be happy so that then you get the big orders. So let me back up. I think, when you get with a new product like this in a new country, we didn't have like big business first. We would have a pilot or a proof of concept, even a demo sometime with a big potential account. And so making sure those little projects are perfect was the key to unlock additional business after that, which are bigger, get more cash in the bank, and then allows you to like automate most of the things you want to do. But at the beginning, you send engineers, you send people to support robots to overtrain the users, so you make sure everyone like your robots and are ready to like use them at a bigger scale. So when you do that, it's not scalable. You have 5, 10 projects and you have 20 people managing those projects. You cannot scale to 100 projects and 1,000 robots. So, you have to do that first, and then people like you, and then they they help you scale your business. So yeah, that's the only really like unscalable thing we did to scale.
Yeah, it's kind of the chicken and the egg problem, just kind of throwing more people at
Exactly.
it before before the demand is there. And then I'd love to just continue the uh, career path and trajectory. I love your story, and walk us through the transition to Vecna. And I'm particularly interested in just learning more about how you're able to convince some of those older school warehouse operators to embrace robotics.
Overall, there's different things. There's the product part of things. So, in both cases, Balyo and Vecna, it was autonomous forklifts. And instead of building a robot that doesn't look like a forklift, both companies we were adding a brain to an existing forklift. So people in the warehouse would see them as the forklift they used to do, or they used to drive, or they used to pass by, with just an additional brain on it. So a little bit like the Waymo cars. I don't know if you've seen that, but it's a normal car with like a lot of sensors on it, but it's still a normal car with a normal door, and with a steering wheel, all that stuff. So same principle. You have to get people into the mindset of it's just the usual, but um, with additional sensors and a brain. Um, so yeah, that's mostly what you want to do, and then you want to train them as much as possible, um, to make sure they understand how it works. And also on the product side, you want to make sure the interface is easy to use. And that's something I think robotics overall has struggled a little bit with, not only in the company I worked for, but also overall as an industry. Engineers tend to build things that are complex and struggle to make it simple to use. So uh, making sure on the screen there's like just a few buttons and they are easy to read was very important at that time to get adoption. And the last point I would say safety for this particular case. A piece of it's 2,000 or 3,000 pounds launch at a certain speed. So it needs to stop. So you need to make sure you got all the right sensors and you follow the right regulation and you explain this to the people so they understand that, it's not dangerous or it's safe. So that was more or less like all the things we did. Yeah.
You raised a great point about just ease of use, and really getting a great simple UX experience. I'm curious if you have any best practices for other hardware product teams out there on, really drilling in on user interviews and getting past the surface level. Yeah, this seems fine to me, to like really understanding what their needs are and how it's like the interface is going to be something that they can easily work with.
Yeah. So depending on the teams, some don't even think about interviewing. So, um, but yeah, go talk to the users, not even the customer, because sometimes your customer that is buying is not necessarily the user. So go talk to the users, um, and put the product in the hands. So do some like lo-fi, low cost product that looks like yours, and ask them open questions like, how do you want it to work? Avoid the, oh, this is what we built, what do you think? Really open to like, how would you like it to work as a user? Um, we did that at Kadeya. So Kadeya is a vending machine. So on the front end, it's really like a big screen and some elements. We did some very simple tests. We went where we had a pilot with our first machines, and we printed out on paper at scale the front end of the machine, put it on a wall, and ask people like, do you think like, what do you think about this? The screen would be here. That's the height. That's how it looked like. Like that's the where you like the uh, beverages dispense, like right, left, high, up, like all those detail, like size of icons, size of text. We tested all this printing on paper, so very like low cost. But we found out like we met we made some interesting discoveries, and the product is, I think, different compared to what we wanted to do initially in our, engineering heads, and not, final user heads. So yeah, that was a very interesting. So my advice to people is go talk to your users, the people who use it, not the people who buy it, and do it and build something scrappy, put it in their hands, and see what happens. I think it's very powerful.
Yeah. I know some product teams struggle when they're talking to the users of the user sometimes wanting to please them or say that, yeah, this seems fine. Um, what are some best practices you found of really diving into the pain point and getting the truth out of these user tests?
Yeah, I think you have to come with asking really open questions, take the time, uh, because it's easy to, ask someone, hey, do you prefer A or B? And they would say A, even if A or B doesn't fit what they would like, but you give them a choice, you do it. So don't go with like uh, choice questions. Just go with, for example, for us on the screen, we're like, do you what do you want to see on the screen? That was the question. In our head, we were thinking icons, price, name of the beverage, all that stuff. Uh, and we were thinking about the shape of it and all that stuff. And they were like, I want big icons because sometimes I forgot my glasses. One guy was like, no, I don't read really well English. So if it's like an icon, I can recognize the product. So, so without the name, but with the actual design of, for example, Coke or Pepsi, they would like, I know what it is. I can click on it without even like reading what is small characters below it. So yeah, so it's really interesting to have open questions like this. Um, yeah, instead of closed answer, or choose between one to three.
Yep. Well, I'd love to dive deeper into Kadeya. Yeah, let's do a little empanada intermission.
Mm-hmm. This is very good.
Amazing. So I'd love to learn a little bit more about just how you made the transition from, robotics and the more industrial automation background into designing Kadeya, the vending machine that washes and refills your bottle on site.
So several things. First, this is always the same, theme around like through my career. Um, it's robotics. So inside the Kadeya box, we have robots moving bottles, cleaning them. So it's the same principle, same type of technology, same ways of developing, same type of processes. So um, very familiar with how to build that type of machine. It's a completely different application use case, but I'm completely familiar with how to make it happen. Um, Second, so the story is that at when I was at Balyo ending my um, uh, stint over there, we decided to stay in the U.S. as a family. So I was like, okay, I need to go back to school and get an American degree and kind of consolidate all the things. I was mid-career type of person. I need to, bring that into probably a kind of degree. So looked at all the MBAs and stuff like that, and fell in love with the MIT one. And I was like, okay, let's try to get there. And so I got to MIT for the executive MBA in 2018, and this 2-year program. And this is where I met Manuela, who is the CEO and co-founder of Kadeya. She was in my class. She was a classmate at that time. Kadeya was just an idea in her head, so she tested it in many ways during the time we were there. uh, we had a lot of first experiments, and I was like watching from the outside. I was just another student. Um, and so then I went to Vecna and did something else. And she started the company in 2020. And in 2022, she calls me and she's like, I need someone to help me building the product. Um, I need someone who knows robotics, who knows customer adoption, all this. And so that's where I joined. That's when I joined the team, and yeah, end of 2022. So that's how I got into Kadeya. Both my skill sets and the fact that I was not afraid of building the product, and the close relationship with Manuela and our capacity to work together because we knew each other, and I knew it would work.
And I'm curious to learn more about how Kadeya's just positioning has changed over time. And I understand originally it was more save the planet as the pitch, and then more pivoting towards logistics and cost savings. And I actually had an interesting chat with Manuela about how the reduction in microplastics is something that users are talking more and more about more recently. So yeah, kind of walk me through how the main value prop has shifted and just adjustments to messaging over time.
Yeah. And I think that's something valid across everyone who is working on impact, social, environmental impact. Um, I think when we get into that, we're so convinced about what we do, and that happened to me. I was like, oh, now I'm gonna join Kadeya. I'm gonna do good. Forget about business. Let's just talk about plastics. Plastic removal. Um, and so people in all those impact companies, they believe so much in the mission that they forget that people have to pay for it, and there's a business, and there is no actually green premium on anything. There's no green premium with customers. There is no green premium with investors, even impact investors. At the end of the day, investors are there to make money, not to save the planet. So um, I think, the first years of Manuela, and then when I joined, and until I want to say 2023, the beginning of 2024, we were very much on like no plastic, no plastic, no plastic. Um, and we had good traction with customers, but always going through um, sustainability people, and it's a long acquisition process. And then at some point, we just learned the industry. So the advice that I'm giving to people working in impact, if you don't know the industry you're in, just go and learn about the industry. And so when we started to be on site doing pilots, we're like, oh, those people are moving bottles all day long. Oh, they're ordering. Oh, they have to store the pallets, and they have then to recycle the waste. Um, and we're like, this is very costly. When you have to reshelf a fridge, once a day, someone needs to come, or someone in the team needs to be in charge of that. And that's a lot of work that is really not the core of what people are doing in warehouse or manufacturing places. They are there to like manage their business, not to hydrate people. So um yeah, and then you start to learn, you start putting numbers together, and you're like, oh, ta-da, we're saving actually 25% on logistic costs. That's fantastic. Plus the headache of it. We don't run out of water. We're plugged on the tap water. So there's always, water, and we do sodas too at the same time. Yeah, it's always there. It's always running. And so the logistics and the headache just goes away. And when we started to talk to customers like this and talking about to ops managers, they're like, yeah, that makes sense. I want to order your machines. And the acquisition went from, I don't know, 6 months or 7 months of conversations to the last one, I think, was something like 30 days to get from first conversation, what we call discovery call, to an actual PO. So just because we're speaking about the right things, and plastic is just the cherry on the cake. Um, Also, it's always, when you talk about climate, it's always controversial politically, and you want to avoid that. So it's also good that it's the cherry on the cake. Um, yeah, and talking about microplastics, that's kind of an additional thing. So we filter the water that gets into our machine. We filter the water for the person will drink, but also for the wash. And so we eliminate 99% of the microplastic through this filter, which um, which is great. And that's an additional thing we're pushing now, talking about this to our customers and users, because there's more and more awareness of this being, maybe the next big health issue for everyone. And so yeah, we're communicating a little bit more on this. But at the end of the day, logistic cost is what creates traction. We're just less expensive, and that's it.
Yeah. And I'm curious the process of targeting in on large warehouses versus targeting maybe traditional office buildings, and how you decided which market to niche down into early on.
So just so everyone is aware, so our beachhead market is manufacturing and warehouse and construction sites. Um, the reason the reasons there are multiple, but um, uh, people work there 6 to 7 days a week, and most of the time at least two shifts. So let's say 16 to 20 hours a day. Um, so since one of our business model is to sell beverages and make money on beverages and not sell the machine, the more usage, the better. So our machine is an asset, so it needs to be used as an asset as much as possible, on 24 hours and over a long period of time. Also, those communities go to work every day. They don't work from home, they don't travel. So you have a constant flow of people who are going to the machine and enjoy it. Um, Third point is they need a hydration to be at the highest level of performance. So it's even required by OSHA to have a certain level of hydration to your workers. And so it's very important for the customer to make sure those people are well hydrated. Um, so that's why we picked that beachhead market. And it's a gigantic market. Just for the US, it's potentially $300 billion. So it's gigantic. So even if we do only this, we'll be busy for a lot of years. Um, if you look at white collar places, or the the traffic is smaller, it's smaller. They require most of the time spreading out the dispense over several floors, with each floor is I don't know, 80, 100, maybe 150 people, and our machine is designed for 500 people. So we don't want to have several machines. As a startup, we want to focus on one thing, one machine, make sure it works, and make sure it's in the right place, getting the right usage. So for now, the smaller facilities are not on our radar. That they will come. And of course, if you look at more open areas like universities, hospitals, even airports or even in the street, this comes with really being able to scale a network, and we're not there yet. We're too small, so we really wanted to stay on something more closed, so we can control what is happening and understand our customers, grow from there, and then we can expand in the next few years.
Makes sense. And with your warehouse customers, I'm curious, as part of the sales pitch, do you have any stats around how Kadeya impacts employee morale or retention, or this as a perk of having easy access to
Yeah,
concerted one?
I don't have the numbers in front of me, but we did some surveys, and there's definitely an impact on retention, because people like that the company is trying to make things simpler for them, um, for their employees. Um, so there's an impact. I don't think this is one of the top decision making things or even retention topic, but it's just a good thing to have for the employees. Yeah, they like the diversity of beverage, and like we change every week. So there's a little bit of discovery, compared to like a blunt fridge where people tend to always take the thing they used to take, without trying to taste new things. So yeah, that, that's pretty good.
Nice little perk, but yeah, going back to your original point, it's the impact on overhead and
Yeah.
bottom line that your most customers are mostly talking about. Well, Dennis, I work in a globally distributed team, and that's my everyday is connecting global talent around the world. And I understand that you have a globally distributed team as well. I'm curious just to dive deeper into how you've built, high trust and high performance teams, and especially how you've scaled across different cultures and different time zones.
A lot of things there to unpack. I think, um, so. Yes, at Kadeya. So at Balyo, just a little summary. At Balyo, of course, being a French company, we had distributed teams like naturally between Europe, US, and Asia. Um, and it was kind of the result of growing the business. At Kadeya, I purposely um, hired a team in France for the hardware engineering, and purposely hire a team in India for the software. Um, so, I mean, the team is in India and also in the US, but mainly in India. Um, so, why that? First, I think I'm going to say something controversial, but why not? I think the engineers for hardware and robotics in Europe are better than in the US. That's my experience. And we can speak an hour about this, but yeah, that's what I think. And especially as in a startup environment, they are more reactive, they are more productive, and it's kind of the same with the software in India. So yeah, I have trusty partners that I trust over there that I've been working with for several years, and this is really working well. To come back to your question, um, how do you make sure there is the right, communication? I think it starts with people knowing each other. So, this is what we're doing here, having empanadas, even if we don't have empanadas, face to face, sharing a meal, sharing a drink. I think that creates the space and opportunities for people to get to know each other and bond. So when they have to call each other, email each other, chat, um, they know each other, and they don't have like the distance anymore. So at Balyo, for example, we're doing twice a year. We're doing a whole company retreat. So that would cost quite a bit of money. But at the end of the day, that was savings because some people were able to like finally meet and bond and get a personal connection that carries over when you're actually working together every day. So doing that, a lot of the tension that can appear because people don't answer your emails or whatever, like all the things that can appear between people that are not at the same place physically, that just disappeared because people know each other. Um, so yeah. Also, I think um, you have to make sure your teams are curious. So, and that's valid. Like you want to learn about the other people culture. So if you hire people who are not curious, you in life overall, you don't get a good result in multicultural teams because some people will be like, hmm, I'm French. I don't care about those Americans. I don't want to learn about them. I don't like that country or whatever. And then you don't create that cultural mesh. Um, so I always ask people when I in interviews, I'm always like, what are you new at this year? So what are you learning this year as a person? And so if people are like nothing, even if they have the best skill set and are good people, it usually won't work in my teams that are usually distributed. If someone tells me, "Oh, I'm starting to learn a new language," or I'm learning a new instrument, or whatever, I'm starting a new sports that and that means you're curious, you want to learn. And so when you're in front of someone who's different than you will like make the extra step to kind of have the conversations and make sure you understand each other.
Yeah, I found also with my team, the highest performers are the ones that have that curiosity, particularly around different cultures and connecting with their American counterparts. And actually, we just recently went over to the Philippines and brought 3 of our Colombian teammates over there to understand, oh, they eat empanadas in both Colombia and
Yeah.
Philippines. Work are the same. And yeah, to your earlier point too, of just like getting everyone together in the same space for those company retreats.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Great. Well, Dennis, I'm curious too. Every founder I feel like has that one point, especially earlier on, where they're really questioning, like, is this ever going to work? And I know I've had that moment multiple times with New work. And I'm curious for you at Kadeya, what was that? Is that this is never going to work moment? And maybe how close were you to walking away in those early days?
I think that was at the very beginning um of Kadeya. So uh both when I was looking from the outside, when since I knew Manuela and I was following what she was building, um I was like, I don't know if it's gonna work. Um, and I think when I joined, um, the first week we're kind of investigating what has been done and where we're going and everything. I was like, oh, there's a lot of work to get there. Um, I didn't want to walk away. Actually, it gave me more like kind of a roadmap in my head. Okay, we're there, we're here, we need to get there, and this is all the things that need to happen, both on the product side but also on the business side, and kind of give the energy to like put that on paper and put a strategy together on how we make it happen and how much money we need and raise money and all that stuff. So never wanted to walk away. It's more like, there's a lot of work. Let's organize it and try to get it done.
I like to ask this question to all of our guests as well. What's one strongly held belief that you have that you think 90% of other founders would disagree with?
I think for tech companies, I think you don't need necessarily a tech person. You don't need a CTO. Um, I think that's challenging when we say that because people are like, "Oh, we need a tech founder." Um, I don't think that's true for most of the uh, companies we're building right now. Um, of course, if you do deep tech, like you're reinventing a new way to like, if you do like I don't know nuclear fusion or like very deep AI stuff that requires specific knowledge in a very deep thing, that makes sense to have, a CTO to manage this because you're inventing something very new. But most of the other business are just assembling stuff that exists together to invent a new thing based on that. Which this is what we do at Kadeya. We put some robots, a washer, put everything in a box. We have a patent for that, but everything that is in the box, we buy it outside or we make it manufactured somewhere. We invented nothing. We just invented putting together some different components to have a new thing. So in that case, what is important is your customers and users. And most of the time, when you have a too strong technical team, they try to build what they like and what is fun to build instead of building what the customer needs. So yeah, that's why we don't have a CTO, for example, at Kadeya. I'm the chief product officer, so my role is to make sure all the business requirements get into the product, and I'm not negotiating with anybody in between. I'm just flowing everything into the product. And of course, we need to make decisions because we cannot do everything at the same time. But we don't have to fight, between people to get it done. It's just my decisions that create the roadmap, and the roadmap. The voice of the customer is really stronger when you do that instead of the voice of the engineers, which is usually very focused on doing things that are fun and impressive to build.
Yeah, that's a good take, and I I agree. It's kind of a outdated mentality now of requiring that technical founder, and I just found tech is becoming less and less of a moat for most companies. Mm. Um, and I'm curious. I think something that's pretty compelling about Kadeya is also the behavioral change that you've been able to put in place with the customers you work with. So, how do you get people used to just instead of get used to returning bottles instead of those one-time plastics, and how do you design for forming that habit in a physical space?
Yeah, I think overall, the overall user experience. So it's a vending machine. So the overall user experience need to be as close as possible slash better than any other vending machine. If you start building something that looks different, that is more complicated, it's not going to work. So a lot of work has been done to make sure going to the machine to buy the drinks is as easy as going to a fridge or to a standard vending machine. Screen, payment, dispense of the bottle. So all this is so familiar that it's easy to use without any training, without any more information than just go to the screen and do what you have to do. Um, so that facilitates the return actually because people are go to the machine easily, um, and also our beachhead market being a place of work, people have some kind of accountability around this. We know, so when you buy a drink, we know that Josh took a drink at 2 p.m. that day, and we know which drink, and people know we know because they have to identify themselves, like a city bike or when you rent a zip car, um, we know. So naturally, people are accountable when they know we know. uh, Also, the return procedure itself is very quick. You scan the bottle, you put in. There's a door that opens. You put it in. 10-second done. So that was very important. You cannot have like a full experience of a minute to return a bottle. So all this has been designed to be very short. Um, and also to return, you want to implement all good positive incentives. Of course, you can punish people with like a lot of things, but what you want to make sure is that people like to come back to the machine, and so you can implement discount, promotions, reward points each time people return on time or even before, and even we can imagine it's not in place, but we can imagine gamification between teams, kind of a little contest between teams on how they return and how much they drink for their hydration, all that stuff. Like it's makes it fun to use And so return is not a constraint, but it's more like, cool, I'm going to go back to the machine and interact again with this thing that is cool.
I love that. Well, très bien, Denise. And I heard back from my VA. The name of your restaurant was Rosita's Cocina. So shout out
Okay.
to
Okay.
them for doing some good empanadas.
Yeah, was very good.
Perfect. And where can people find out more about you and about Kadeya online?
Yeah, so kadeya.com, and we have um, a LinkedIn page. We are on Instagram. It's called Kadeya Club. And myself, I'm on LinkedIn. If people want to follow me or connect with me, always happy to talk to people about what we do, about my career, all those things, whenever they want.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time. I learned a lot on today's episode and really appreciate it and hope you enjoy these empanadas.
Yeah, that was very good. That's the last bite. Thank you,
Amazing.
Josh.